Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Ronsley. This is episode number 43 of my AI Love Affair. I am in hot, sunny Dubai and recording this episode for you. You're going to learn how to do prompt stacking because it's easily one of the most important things that you can learn when it comes to prompting. Now, if you haven't watched the previous episode on how to prompt engineer, go check out that episode because it is the fundamentals and it'll be the basis of everything that you learn going forward. But once you know those concepts, you can come to this episode and learn how to prompt stack and context layer. It is probably one of the things that will get you results that you're actually after, and it'll remove all the generic things that you create when it comes to artificial intelligence. You can context layer that actually gives you results that you're after. So come, let's learn. Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to this podcast, My AI Love Affair. Consider this podcast your digital compass, guiding you through the labyrinth that is business growth using artificial intelligence. Running a business as a creative can sometimes be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But what if you had a secret tool that could align all the colors for you? That is AI. It's like a master key unlocking multiple doors. Thanks for being here. Let's learn. All right, welcome to the show. It is going to be a really important subject when it comes to you getting what you want out of any prompt-based artificial intelligence. Now, the way I'd love you to think about the different types of artificial intelligence is like talking to a person that's extremely smart. And ChatGPT is a different person, Bard is a different person, Bing is a different person, Claude 2 is a different person, Llama 2 is a different person. The different models means they're different people and they understand things differently. And to prompt stack and context layer, when it comes to those things, it makes it easy for you to get what you're really after from these generative text-based transformers. If you don't know what GPT stands for, it is generative pre-trained transformer, which means that when you give it your prompt based on its knowledge, it is finding the best solution and the next word. So all it's doing is it's generating the next word in its pre-trained transformer. So when you think about talking to any artificial intelligence, you're just talking to someone who is extremely smart and has learned a whole lot of things depending on the parameter size and the number of data that it is actually trained on. So what does prompt stacking mean and why is it so important? Well, prompt stacking and context layering refer to the methods that are used in AI to process and generate text by utilizing a series of prompts or layers of context for more accurate and nuanced results. What that means is you can start by using a simple prompt like write me an article on artificial intelligence. And when it does that, you can refine that prompt and saying write me an article on artificial intelligence that's about 500 words and write it in the voice of Ronsley. Now, when it comes to ChatGPT, it actually knows Ronsley because of the content that I've been putting out over the last decade and more. So it knows how I speak, it knows who Ronsley is, and it knows a lot of other people like Gary Vaynerchuk or Amy Porterfield. It doesn't matter who we're talking about, but people putting out content for a while, their work is already online. So you can actually ask it to write it in that. So you see how the first line is just a generic prompt, and with each one, I am giving it context and layers to understand. So that is the concept of prompt stacking. Now, understanding this allows you to create better interactive experience with artificial intelligence because it helps you enhance your user engagement and the automation of your business because you're having this conversation with someone as opposed to just thinking that you are expected to get the result from the day you put in the first prompt. That's not going to happen. Context layering, it is like going to someone who's not done your work ever and you've just brought a new team member on board and they've come back with some work, and it's not about you kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater is about you taking that work and refining it, giving more context, giving more instructions so that the next time or when they improve this current work, if it's not to your satisfaction, they're doing it with better context. So just saying do it again does not make any difference. So making sure that you give context and layering the prompt is really important so that you can enhance the whole experience of what you're doing with artificial intelligence. And it's not like getting you things that you don't actually want, which is what is happening to most people. What happens with that is that it leads to a more effective use of AI tools. This helps businesses save time and offer a more personalized experience and output when it comes to artificial intelligence. You will make this whole thing more enjoyable for you or whoever else is using artificial intelligence for your business, and definitely it's going to skyrocket what you're doing for your business. So there are some principles that I'd love you to follow. The first principle is sequential processing. So AI reads text in a sequence, understanding one piece before it moves on to the next. And it's really important that you understand that it is a sequential read and it goes from one side to the other. Think of AI like reading a recipe. Each step prepares it for the next. Another way to look at it is it's like assembling a Lego tower. One block affects the next. So if you sort of misplace one, you can potentially create a structure that is not necessarily what you want. Or you can think of it like a train following a set track. Each prompt leads to a specific output, and you're going to make sure that it is being done in order. The second principle I'd love you to understand is contextual understanding. AI uses the surrounding information to understand the current input. So imagine AI as a detective piecing together all the different clues you've given it. Now, this comes from all the context and all the data that it already has, and it also comes from the input and the prompt that you've been giving it and you've been stacking over time. And the last first principle, which is really important, is dynamic adaptation. AI can adjust its responses based on new data. So think of it like a GPS recalculating your route based on traffic. That is it adapting based on dynamic information. So this whole idea of prompt stacking and context layering is to be able to recorrect and correct what you're getting, take the output, refine it, put new inputs and refine it to get better outputs. It's like a chef tweaking a recipe based on available ingredients. It's really funny because I'm here in Dubai and I'm going to be cooking for a bunch of friends this weekend, and I don't want to buy a whole bunch of ingredients that I'm not going to use. So I'm going to make and tweak recipes that I already know based on available ingredients and how I will minimize waste in this whole escapade. I do not want to waste any food, so I want to make sure that everything gets used. And that is exactly what artificial intelligence, you can give it constraints and it'll work in a way that you would not expect it to work because it is so efficient with the constraints that you give it. More constraints, the better. Okay, so these are the first principles, the three of them, which I kind of wanted you to understand before we can get into three components that are really important when it comes to prompt stacking and context layering. These three components will actually make the prompt stack and the context layer way more beneficial for you, okay? The first one is input prompts. What is the initial query or statement that is used to kick off the AI's process? Now, that could be very simple, or that could be a little bit more complex with constraints. Think of it as a starting point in a treasure hunt. The more specific you are, the better the starting point, the better the foundation you create to get the results you want. First input prompt is the most important, and it is the component that actually dictates what's going to happen next with the prompt stacks and the context layer that you go through. The second component that's important is the different context layers that you add. These are additional pieces of information that guide AI's responses. And while we're here, it's important to understand the term recursion. If this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, you might have not heard this term before, but I've used this term in previous episodes. Recursive input is when you take the output from something and you give it back as an input into the next prompt. So that is recursive input. It's like adding weights to balance the scale. You're making sure that AI's responses are what you want, and you're giving it additional pieces of information to guide those responses. That's number 2. And number 3 is the output. So this is the generated result based on the prompt and the context. And this, when I mentioned recursion, every output can become an input. And all those 3 components can go into recursion. So the output, think of it as the final brushstroke of a painting that you've created. Imagine it as the GPS has guided your journey towards. Now, when I mentioned recursion earlier, you can use these 3 things in recursive format with the output of a certain prompt, and the result can then become the input again, where you put that in, refine the query, then you give it additional context to get a better output. And that can go around in circles until you get it to do what you want it to do. Let's talk about some applications and how to use these components and principles in actual application. So the first thing to do is definitely ideate and brainstorm. It's like having an expert that can be a sounding board, giving it input and giving it constraints. I have an episode with Gary Vaynerchuk coming up. I think it'll be episode 51. So look forward to that. And he talks about some really interesting things about, he uses artificial intelligence to ask questions that you might be curious about. This ideation and brainstorming is just second to none. Content creation is like probably the thing that everyone wants to do, but ideation and brainstorming is probably the most simplest way, because clarity allows you to dictate what happens next. Number 2, obviously content creation. Make it write like you, make it create like you, specifically for your audience, and give it that context. So let me give you an example. Write an article on artificial intelligence for creative small business owners who are online and are looking to use artificial intelligence to ideate and brainstorm their next product idea. Write this in a SEO format with the following keywords present, and you can put your keywords in brackets, and make sure that it is SEO relevant and it is more than 1,000 words. So you see how much of context I've given it to create something that can actually create specifically for your audience. And the final one is email nurture sequences. You can create these in bulk. Now, this is something that I learned and I've executed. And if you want to go to aigeeks.co/level2, you will see this email nurture sequence that I've created, where you can get 30 lessons on how to use artificial intelligence in different areas of your business. And what I did was I created the list of what different topics that I wanted to teach. And then I created a template based on artificial intelligence on how I wanted each of those lessons to go. And then when I had the template, I just had a prompt that allowed me to create 30 emails. And I edited the emails with video lessons, and I did that all in 2 hours. And that's 30 emails in my voice for my audience for a course, a 30-day course that someone can buy right now on how to delegate their business to artificial intelligence. These applications are absolutely insane, and I think you should start using them, and context layering is definitely what helps. All right, I'm going to show you some examples on how I use artificial intelligence with context layering. Now, in this, you will be able to see an idea that I am right now working on. It's a current project. It's my new book. It's how to become a chief AI officer. And what I did was I had my whole book planned out. I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the book planned out, the different sections. So laying the foundation, amplifying, starting with the end, delivering real outcomes. And these are the different sections. Within these sections, there are different chapters, and I've broken each of them down. And then I exported this and I gave it to artificial intelligence as a PDF. And I said, read this. And I want to make this a page turner. Help me get there. Give me questions I should be asking from here. So it reads that and it gives me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, okay, can we start with answering questions 2, 3 and 5, be exhaustive and keep my expertise and intentions in mind. See how I'm context layering, okay, and prompt stacking. So it kind of gave me structures of each chapter, storytelling techniques, which was really useful, as well as tying content with current trends, which ethical AI is probably one of the most important things that I need to be covering. And it's really important that I cover that correctly. So this was really important for me to know and get from artificial intelligence from a brainstorming point of view. When it gave me this, I kind of wanted to make sure that it understood what I was after. So I wanted to focus only on the structure of the book because I noticed that it changed certain things in here. So I said, before you go further, I want to focus on the structure of the book. Reread the PDF I gave you entirely. Only once you've done that, let me know and I'll ask you what's on my mind next. And then I said, okay, now I want your help to structure the book in a way that makes it a bestseller and a page turner. Help me create a chapter and section outline that helps my reader easily understand and execute AI to grow their business. And then it gave me a very, very decent one. And then, well, it gave me decent, but then I said, it seems like you've changed the intent of the book. So use the outline I have provided to inform the structure you give me. And then it kind of redoes that. So this is really important for structure and understanding how to context layer and structure your different prompts and stack your different prompts. So let me show you 2-day workshop, another one that I think is really valuable. So I said, I want to deliver a 2-day workshop online. The topic is how to launch your business podcast using AI in 2 days. I've given it all the things that I want to happen. And I've given it a lot of context. Now you see this context is way more. The initial input starting prompt is a lot more context than the first example that I showed you. And also notice in here that I've enabled plugins, which is Metaphor plugin and Web Pilot plugin, which I spoke about in the episode. So then it designed that and it gave me 2 days. And I'm like, okay, can you design worksheets? So it gave me worksheets and it gave me recommendations, promotion ideas. And I was like, can you use a table format to design worksheets for day one? And it did that. So this is how you find context and layer context and use artificial intelligence to actually do the things that you actually wanted to do. So if you're after this whole slide deck, please go to aigeeks.co/discord and you will be able to get access to everything that we have. It's a community. You can ask questions. If you have any sort of specific things that you want to ask me, please don't hesitate to do that. Go to aigeeks.co/discord or go to aigeeks.co/level1 and you will get 20 free lessons on how to use artificial intelligence and some really important concepts for you to understand to use artificial intelligence to grow your business, not just to do really cool magic tricks. All right, until next time, love what you do, what you love, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, AI Geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co/discord. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI Geek. Until then, much love.